is warm. A slow wind drifts from the Mediterranean, carrying the scent of salt and myrrh, and a hint of smoke from distant torches. Somewhere beyond the horizon, a ship cuts across the dark water. The vessel that carries you. The oars move in rhythm, steady as breath. You can hear the creak of wood, the whisper of linen sails, the small hush of water folding itself back into the sea. Ahead, aglow, faint at first, then brightening. The city of Alexandria, jewel of the ancient world. Founded by Alexander the Great in 331 BCE. It was built where desert met sea, where Greek thought mingled with Egyptian faith. Tonight, its lighthouse, the Pharos, one of the seven wonders, stands like a pillar of fire guiding you in. Its flame mirrors the stars above, and together they shimmer like eyes watching your arrival. The captain lowers his voice. By dawn, he says, you'll walk where knowledge itself was born. You breathe in the promise of it. Warm wind brushes your face. The salt settles on your lips. As the ship glides toward the quay, you see marble columns rising from the shore. White stone veined with gold. Statues of the Muses line the promenade, each one holding a symbol, a lyre, a mask, a scroll. The air hums with language, Greek, Egyptian, Hebrew, Aramaic, voices blending like waves meeting sand. Scholars in linen robes carry wax tablets. Traders shout over amphorae of wine. Children chase each other through the lamplight. Even at night, Alexandria never truly sleeps. You step onto the dock. The stones are still warm from the day. Somewhere nearby, a musician plucks a kithara. Slow circular notes that sound like thinking made audible. You follow the sound through narrow streets until the harbour fades behind you. The road climbs gently toward the Bruchaon, the royal quarter. There, behind walls of polished limestone, lies what you came for. The Library of Alexandria. But for now, you move slowly. Your footsteps echo between tall buildings. Oil lamps flicker behind carved shutters. The city smells of ink and honey, seaweed and parchment. A man waits at a bronze gate. He wears a white robe edged with blue thread, a scholar's mark, and carries a small oil lamp. When you approach, he smiles as though he's known you for years. Welcome, he says. I am Callimachus, keeper of the catalogues. You've arrived on the night before the solstice. The sea was kind to bring you at head. You nod, and he gestures for you to follow. The gate opens with a low tone. bronze against stone, and you step inside. The air changes, cooler, still. The sounds of the city fade until all that remains is the soft shuffle of sandals and the rhythmic drip of water from a nearby fountain. Callimachus lifts his lamp. Before you, a courtyard unfolds. Columns circling a garden of papyrus and laurel. In its centre, a marble pool mirrors the moon. Above it rises the great facade of the Mausion, the temple of the Muses. This, he whispers, is where thought sleeps and wakes again. He tells you that Ptolemy the first Soter, successor to Alexander, founded this place nearly a century ago. He dreamed of a library that would hold every word ever written. Ships arriving in the harbour were required to surrender their scrolls. Scribes copied them by hand, returning replicas while the originals stayed here. Thousands upon thousands. Poetry, medicine, astronomy, geometry, histories, all gathered beneath these roofs. You walk beneath the colonnade. The marble floor is cool under your feet. Each step releases the faint scent of ink and dust and oil. Somewhere in the distance, quills scratch quietly. The sound of eternity being written one line at a time. Callimachus leads you through an archway into the main hall. The ceiling soars high above, beams of cedar from Lebanon crossing in precise geometry. Lamps hang like small planets. Scrolls line every wall, bound with ribbons of red or green to mark their subjects. There are over 500,000 scrolls now, he murmurs. Works of Euclid, Eratosthenes, Archimedes, the Iliad, the Odyssey, the laws of Egypt, the songs of the desert tribes, every voice we could find. You trace your fingers lightly along the edges of the nearest shelf. In one, a bronze sphere spins slowly, a model of the known heavens built by Eratosthenes, who measured the Earth's circumference using nothing but shadows and curiosity. Callimachus pauses before a small doorway veiled with linen. This is the quiet chamber, he says, where scholars come not to read, but to remember. You step inside. The walls are smooth stone. The floor is covered with woven mats. A single lamp burns in the corner, its flame steady and low. You sit. Your breathing matches the flicker. Callimachus's voice lowers to a whisper. When the library was founded, the king asked the oracle of Amun what offerings should be made. The oracle said, "Give them silence." So we built this room first. He bows slightly and leaves you there. The curtain falls back, the soft pulse of light. You close your eyes. Outside, the sea hushes against the docks. Somewhere, a gull cries once, then fades. The world narrows to the sound of your own breath, the smell of papyrus and oil, the slow rhythm of peace. In this moment, you understand what the scholars here already know, that knowledge is not noise, it is listening. The lamp flickers again. A warm current of air moves through the room, carrying the faint echo of 1,000 voices. Poets, physicians, philosophers, all speaking softly across centuries. You smile, letting their words drift around you like dust in sunbeams. And as your eyes grow heavier, the night of Alexandria folds itself over you like a scroll, being gently closed. Sleep finds you, and the story continues. When you wake, morning light has already poured through the open lattice of the chamber. It moves slowly across the walls, gilding the dust in gold. Outside, you hear the faint hum of Alexandria beginning its day. Sandals on stone, traders calling in low voices, the soft cooing of doves that roost in the temple eaves. Callimachus returns quietly, carrying a clay cup of warm water, scented with honey and crushed mint. "Drink," he says. "The day here starts with sweetness." Knowledge flows more easily when the mouth remembers kindness first. The water tastes like light itself, soft, cool, restorative. You set the cup aside and follow him through a narrow hallway, lined with carved limestone tablets. Hieroglyphs and Greek script intertwine, two languages sharing one breath. He runs his fingers across the carvings. "This wall," he murmurs, "records the first catalogue we ever made. 6 scrolls, written by my own hand, each named 1,000 more. I called it the Penakes, our map of words." You walk in silence for a while. The scent of papyrus grows stronger. The corridors open into a grand courtyard, where sunlight spills through latticed windows, glancing off hundreds of copper bowls filled with ink. Scribes sit cross-legged on mats, their hands moving in careful rhythm, copying, labeling, preserving. Every sound feels measured. The scrape of a reed pen, the rustle of linen robes, the faint clink of clay pots being sealed. Callimachus lowers his voice. "We copy not for greed," he says, "but for memory. Ships come from India, from Babylon, from Carthage. bring stories wrapped in wax and silk. We take one, we give one back. In this way, Alexandria listens to the world. He gestures to a young woman sitting near a tall pile of scrolls. This is Hypatia's grandmother, a mathematician. She teaches the ratio of beauty, the harmony that governs stars and song alike. The woman looks up briefly and smiles. You watch as she writes a symbol, phi, on a strip of papyrus. Perfection, she says softly, is just balance. Callimachus nods approvingly. Every scroll here breathes that truth, he whispers. You continue deeper into the complex. Through one archway, a courtyard opens to the sea. Fountains shaped like dolphins spill water into stone basins. Pigeons bathe in the ripples. Through another, a long colonnade stretches toward the royal palace, connecting the Museon with the gardens of Cleopatra's forebears. The Museon is more than a library. It is a living university, a sanctuary of study and conversation. You pass rooms devoted to medicine, where jars of herbs line the walls. A scholar named Herophilus once dissected the mysteries of the human heart here. In another, astronomers draw circles in sand, charting the heavens with strings and weights, muttering numbers that sound like prayers. Callimachus stops beside a bronze model of the earth, a perfect sphere resting on a marble pedestal. Eratosthenes built this, he explains. He measured the planet by watching shadows fall at noon. In Syene, the sun touched the bottom of a well. Here, it cast an angle. From that difference, he learned the Earth's true size. Without leaving Alexandria, you stare at the sphere, thinking of light traveling through empty space, of minds reaching across distance with only curiosity as their compass. The room feels hushed, reverent, infinite. Callimachus continues softly. Knowledge does not begin in certainty. It begins in wonder. A bell rings faintly from somewhere above. Scribes look up. It's time for the offerings, he says. He leads you to a courtyard garden, open to the sky. In the center stands a small altar, carved with 9 figures. The Muses, Calliope, muse of epic poetry, Clio, of history, Erato, of love, Euterpe, of music, Melpomene, of tragedy, Polyhymnia, of hymns, Terpsichore, of dance, Thalia, of comedy, and Urania, who charts the stars. Each morning, scholars light a single lamp before one muse, dedicating their day's work. Some days the hall burns bright with dozens of flames. Other days only one or two. Still, the ritual never ceases. Callimachus hands you a small taper. Today, he says, you will light for Cleo, the keeper of memory. You touch your flame to the oil lamp, and it catches easily, rising steady and golden. The moment feels both sacred and fragile. Cleo reminds us that memory is not about holding, he whispers. It's about carrying, gently. You watch the flame dance. The air around it shimmers. The sound of the sea drifts in from afar, rhythmic, constant. The scholars bow their heads, then return silently to their scrolls. For hours you wander among them. You learn that the library isn't just one building, it's many, woven through the royal quarter, connected by covered walkways. There are reading rooms, lecture halls, scriptoriums, botanical gardens, and living quarters for hundreds of resident scholars. Meals are taken communally. Discussions last through the night. There are no boundaries between subjects. Poets dine with physicians, astronomers with philosophers. You pause before a bronze door engraved with vines. Callimachus opens it, revealing a small amphitheatre, bathed in filtered sunlight. A few students sit on stone benches, listening to a tall man with silver hair. That, he whispers, is Aristarchus of Samos. He teaches that the earth moves around the sun, though few yet believe him. The old man draws circles in the dust with his staff, murmuring, "The sun does not chase us, we chase it." The students smile, unsure if he's joking. Callimachus watches fondly. "Truth takes time," he says quietly. "Even light must travel." You sit for a while, listening. The words become softer, slower, rhythmic. The warmth of the sun seeps into your skin. The air smells faintly of cedar and sea salt. When the lesson ends, Aristarchus bows slightly to you, as if recognizing another seeker. By midday, the library hums like a beehive of quiet devotion. Copyists stretch their hands, priests feed oil to the lamps, and the sound of quills fills the air like distant rain. You find yourself moving more slowly now, as though the pace of the place has entered your bones. Callimachus gestures toward a shaded portico overlooking the gardens. "There," he says, "the philosophers eat lunch in silence. Figs, olives, barley bread, water." He invites you to join them. You sit on a low stone bench. The food is simple and grounding. No one rushes. Between bites you listen to the wind move through cypress trees and think that perhaps this is what peace has always sounded like. After the meal, Callimachus wipes his hands and says, Would you like to see where we keep the oldest scroll of all? You nod. He leads you down a narrow stair, lit by flickering lamps set into the wall. The air grows cooler, heavier, tinged with salt, the sea's breath filtering through stone. At the bottom lies a door bound with bronze. This chamber, he says softly, was built when Ptolemy still walked the earth. Only a few are permitted here. He turns a key. The hinges moan softly. Inside, the room is small and circular. The ceiling arch is like a dome, painted deep blue and scattered with stars. In the center rests a single scroll inside a glass vessel. Its surface is faded, edges crumbling, but the ink remains faintly black. This, Callimachus whispers, is the Book of Breathings. It came from the temples of Thebes. It tells how to guide a soul to rest. He touches the glass gently. When we read it aloud, we remember that knowledge is not for power. It's for peace. He looks at you then, eyes reflecting lamplight. Every scroll, every lesson, every voice here, it all leads to that same truth. You breathe deeply. The air smells of age, papyrus, and quiet. The stillness in this room feels eternal. As you leave, he extinguishes the lamp. Darkness folds around you like silk. The sound of your footsteps fades up the stair, blending with the rhythmic murmur of the sea. When you emerge again into the daylight, the courtyard glows pale gold. The day is beginning to tilt toward afternoon. Callimachus smiles. The lines around his eyes soft. Tonight, he says, we read by starlight. He gestures toward the upper balconies, where the scholars will gather when the sun sinks. Hundreds of lamps lighting like constellations across the marble. Rest now, he says quietly. You'll need your strength for the night. You nod, following him back through the shaded halls. The library breathes around you, a living, endless sigh. You return to your chamber, lie down on the cool mat and close your eyes. The faint hum of voices and the smell of ink cradle you towards sleep once more. Evening returns with a copper glow. Sunlight pours through the tall slatted windows, striking the floors of white marble until they shine like water. Somewhere deep within the building, a bronze gong sounds, low, deliberate, the heartbeat of a living mind. You rise from your mat. The library around you has changed with the light. Everything seems slower, hushed. Callimachus meets you at the corridor and hands you a small lamp already burning. The day is for study, he murmurs. right is for understanding. You follow him through a passage lined with statues of the 9 muses. Oil lamps flicker at their feet, each flame trembling when you pass. The air is cool now, scented with ink, smoke, and faint sea salt from the harbour breeze that slips between the stones. He leads you into the main archive, a hall so vast that the light fades before it reaches the far wall. Wooden ladders lean against shelves that climb toward the rafters. Each shelf is crowded with scrolls bound in linen, tagged with coloured clay seals. Red for philosophy, blue for medicine, green for poetry, gold for astronomy. You can hear the quiet crackle of papyrus being unrolled and retied. Dozens of scribes sit at low tables, each with a reed pen and a small knife used to sharpen the tips. They dip their pens into soot ink mixed with gum arabic, then draw careful lines across the pale surface of each sheet. The rhythm is hypnotic. Scratch, pause, breathe, scratch. Callimachus whispers, "We write on papyrus brought from the Nile Delta. Each roll holds 20 sheets, glued edge to edge. A scroll of Homer can stretch the length of a small boat. You run your hand along one bundle. The papyrus hums faintly under your fingers. Dry, fibrous, alive. You imagine the hundreds of thousands like it stacked in the dim, cool air. Their combined weight equal to a continent of thought. In one corner, a boy grinds malachite into powder to make green pigment. Beside him, an older man measures oil drops into clay lamps, careful not to spill a single drop. When one lamp goes out, another is lit before the darkness can settle. The hall breathes in unison with its fires. Callimachus leads you toward a spiral stair of polished limestone. At the landing he points to a narrow gallery with open shutters facing the sea. "This is the scriptorium of winds," he says. "Scholars copy here because the breeze keeps the papyrus from curling." You step inside. A dozen students sit cross-legged along the wall. One reads aloud slowly in Greek. Everything changes, yet nothing is lost. Another repeats the line in Egyptian. A third writes it on wax tablets. The echo of voices, one language becoming another, feels like waves folding into each other. Endless translation, endless care. Far below, the harbour glimmers under the last light. You can see ships at anchor, their sails drawn tight, their hulls filled with scrolls destined for duplication. Callimachus explains, "By royal decree, every ship entering Alexandria must surrender its writings. We copy them, then return the copies to their owners. Thus the library grows faster than any man's lifetime. He pauses, smiling faintly. It is said even the Hebrew law and the Vedas of India rest somewhere in these halls. The thought fills you with quiet awe. Here, under one roof, the words of the entire known world whisper together. He guides you next into a smaller chamber, lit by only a single skylight. A marble basin sits in the center. Around it, astronomers chart the movement of the stars on papyrus stretched over wooden frames. A man with dark hair, his robe streaked with charcoal, looks up and greets you kindly. "This is Eratosthenes," Callimachus says, "the keeper of geography." Eratosthenes gestures for you to stand beside him. He shows you a long stick planted upright in sand. On the summer sun, he smiles at your expression of wonder. "Truth is patient," he says softly. "It waits for those who measure with care." Callimachus touches your shoulder and leads you onward. You pass a room where healers grind herbs, coriander, myrrh, frankincense, and write the mixtures on scrolls. You pass another where poets debate rhythm, while a musician plucks a slow, repeating pattern on a kithara. The entire building feels like a body breathing in thought. At dusk, a bell rings again. The scribes set down their pens. The sound of scratching fades to silence. They stretch, stand, and gather their lamps. Callimachus nods to you. "Come," he says. "You should see the roof." You climb a narrow stair that spirals upward through the stone. Each step echoes lightly. When you emerge, the sky has deepened to indigo. Below you, the city glows. Thousands of small flames like stars fallen to earth. Beyond the harbour, the Pharos lighthouse burns its great beacon, turning slowly on its mirrored platform. On the roof, scholars sit in quiet rows, watching constellations rise above the sea. The air is soft and cool. You can smell salt and crushed cedar. Callimachus points east. "There," he says, "is Canopus, the bright star sailors follow home." And there, he traces with a finger, is the line of Orion's belt. The same stars our ancestors drew on temple ceilings. He hands you a thin sheet of papyrus on which a scribe has inked a map of the heavens. "Every night," he whispers, "we add a mark for each star we name. Someday, we will know them all." The thought feels both impossible and true. Above, the moon hangs low, pale, immense, unblinking. The wind moves through your hair like water. No one speaks for a long time. Only the sound of the sea below and the slow turning of the beacon fills the air. You realize the silence here is not empty. It is full, alive with meaning. when Callimachus finally speaks, his voice is barely more than breath. "This is the heart of the library," he says. "Not the scrolls, not the walls, but this." He lets the words fade. Then, softly, "Remember this stillness. It will matter later." Night deepens. One by one the lamps are extinguished until only the beacon remains. You lie back on the cool stone, feeling the warmth of the day still trapped beneath it. The air tastes of salt and ink and peace. You close your eyes and the world drifts outward, vast and luminous. The library seems endless now, its shelves stretching into dream, its scrolls murmuring faintly, as if telling their stories to the dark. And beneath that whisper, your heartbeat slows, finding the rhythm of the sea. Somewhere below, a single lamp still burns in the scriptorium, the last flame of the night. Its light flickers against the walls like breath, and in that steady, fragile glow, Alexandria sleeps. The air has changed. It carries the dry weight of late summer, a hint of smoke, a taste of metal. From the harbour below you hear shouts muffled by distance, the hollow clang of oars against hulls. Callimachus stands on the balcony, looking toward the sea. Ships crowd the water, their torches swaying like restless stars. "The Romans have come," he says quietly. "Julius Caesar fights the army of Cleopatra's brother. They have set fire to their own ships to block the port." You follow his gaze. At the edge of the bay, orange blossoms flare against the dark. The wind catches them, tossing sparks into the sky. They drift like fireflies over the water, carried toward the docks. Callimachus exhales slowly. "The library walls are stone," he murmurs, "but the roofs are cedar." He turns to you, his face calm, almost tender. "We cannot stop the wind. We can only guide what it brings." He gestures for you to follow. Together you descend through the colonnades. Scribes are already moving in silence, gathering armfuls of scrolls into clay jars, sealing them with wax. They pass them hand to hand, a river of movement illuminated by lamplight. No panic, only rhythm. A young woman ties a ribbon around a bundle of papyri. She looks up at you and smiles faintly. "We copy words so they can travel," she says. "Maybe they will travel further this way." He begins handing scrolls to the younger scholars. Take what you can to the Serapeum, he instructs. It may survive there. They bow and hurry into the night, their lamps glowing like scattered stars. You and Callimachus remain. The air grows warm. Somewhere below, wood cracks. You can hear the sea roaring against the quay, waves hissing as sparks touch water. Listen, he says. You close your eyes. Beneath the noise, another sound. Steady, low, endless. The same sound that has always been here. The breath of learning itself. It is untouched. He smiles. Knowledge isn't lost, he says softly. It changes shape. He hands you a small sealed jar. Inside are several narrow scrolls bound with linen thread. These are fragments of Homer, Euclid, and one prayer written in the old Egyptian tongue. Carry them to the harbour. There is a merchant who will sail at dawn. If the gods are kind, these words will live. You hold the jar against your chest. Its warmth is your heartbeat reflected back. Outside, the courtyard glows with amber light. Smoke drifts between columns, thick but strangely fragrant. Cedar, resin, ink. Scholars move through it like ghosts, each carrying something. A basket of ink pots, a tablet of maps, a bronze astrolabe. No one runs. They move as if in ritual. A bell rings once, deep and long. It is the signal to leave. Callimachus looks around the courtyard one last time. Remember what I told you, he says. The heart of the library is not in its walls. You nod. He smiles, tired but peaceful. Then go. The sea waits. You walk through streets lit by the fire's reflection. Above you the pharos still burns its beacon, twin flame to the chaos below. Sparks float through the night like falling stars. People gather at the docks, their faces orange in the glow. Among them you find the merchant, an older man loading jars onto a small boat. He gestures silently, and you hand him the sealed vessel. He tucks it beneath a bundle of cloth and bows. No fire reaches the open sea, he says. You step back. The boat pushes off, its oars dipping quietly into the black water. For a moment, you see the jar's faint reflection. Then it is gone, swallowed by distance and salt. You turn toward the city. Flames lick the roofs, rising like sunrise in reverse. Columns glow, then fade. The library silhouette wavers, soft, majestic, dissolving into smoke. and yet within that glow you feel no despair, only stillness, a strange, vast acceptance, because you can see what Callimachus meant. The words are not dying, they are scattering, becoming air, becoming thought, carried on the same wind that once brought them here. You stand at the harbour until the first hint of dawn appears, pale and silent. The fire is fading now, replaced by the low hum of waves and distant birds. Ash falls softly around you, white as snow. You breathe it in. It smells of cedar and ink and time. When you exhale, it feels like letting go of something ancient. Behind you, the sun begins to rise over the water. Light touches the smoke, turning it silver. The city stirs. Somewhere a child laughs. Somewhere a quill scratches on new parchment. The world continues to write. Morning has returned. It comes softly, almost shy, seeping through the mist that hangs above the harbour. The air is cool now, rinsed clean by salt and smoke. Each breath tastes of beginnings. You stand where the sea meets the marble quay. Behind you, Alexandria still smoulders in places, thin white ribbons of smoke rising like prayers. But the wind has changed. It carries the smell of wet stone and honey rather than fire. A fisherman walks past with a net over his shoulder. He nods in greeting as though nothing unusual has happened. For him, dawn is always a new book. You turn toward the hills where the library once stood. What remains are fragments. A column here, a cracked lintel there, piles of blackened cedar. But between the stones, green shoots have already begun to push through the ash. Life wastes no time remembering how to begin again. Callimachus appears beside you. His robe is dusted grey, his lamp dark. You walk with him through the ruins. The ground is warm underfoot, still breathing heat from the night before. When you pass what was once the Hall of Astronomy, you see the bronze sphere toppled but unbroken. Eratosthenes' circles are faintly visible beneath soot. Callimachus brushes it with his sleeve. Everything turns, he murmurs again, even loss. A handful of scholars remain. Some gather charred papyri. Others sit quietly sketching what they remember. No one speaks above a whisper. The only loud sound is the sea, endlessly folding against the breakwater. Callimachus kneels and lifts a small piece of scorched papyrus. On it, a few letters still shine where the ink survived. Alpha, Gamma, Alpha, Pi, Eta, Love. He hands it to you. This, he says, is enough. You hold it carefully. It feels fragile but steady, like a heartbeat written in dust. He straightens and gestures toward the sky. Look, he says. High above, thin trails of ash drift eastward over the water. A grey migration. That is what will carry us forward. The words are leaving, but they will fall somewhere new. You follow the drifting ash until your eyes blur. For a moment, the particles catch the light, turning silver. They look like letters scattering across the heavens. You remember the jars sent away on the merchant's boat, the copies carried to other cities, Pergamon, Antioch, Athens. You realize the library hasn't ended. It is multiplied. It exists now wherever someone remembers, wherever someone wonders. Callimachus watches you think. He nods. Exactly, he says softly. Nothing written with care is ever lost. It only changes readers. He hands you his lamp. Keep it, he whispers. Not for fire, but for light. You lift it. The glass is cracked, but inside a small glow still lingers. A coal of orange life. It feels warm against your palm. As the sun rises higher, you walk alone through the outer courtyard. Birds return to the pools, dipping their wings. Children run along the colonnade, chasing one another's shadows. The city hums with ordinary morning sounds. Vendors calling, sandals on stone, laughter carried by wind. You pause beneath the surviving arch. The shadow it casts is perfect. A clean half-circle across the marble. You realize that even in ruin, geometry persists. Harmony persists. The library is not vanished. It is simply moved inside everything that endures. You sit on a fragment of column. Close your eyes and breathe. Behind your eyelids, a fire becomes light again. The roar becomes the sea. The ash becomes pages turning somewhere far away. You imagine distant generations opening scrolls, reading words that once lived here, hearing faint echoes of the same scratch of reed on papyrus. Maybe they will never know the names of those who wrote or saved them, but they will feel the quiet devotion in each line, and that will be enough. A gull circles overhead, crying once before it glides out toward the horizon. The sound fades and blends with the whisper of waves. Your breathing slows. Your shoulders grow heavy, loose, calm. Callimachus's last words return, clear as the tide. The heart of the library is not in its walls. You let that sentence rest inside you like a final note. It expands with every breath until you can no longer tell where the thought ends and the air begins. The breeze moves through your hair. Somewhere a bell rings. Not alarm now, but morning. A beginning disguised as an ending. You lie back on the sun-warmed stone. The sky above you is pale and endless. A single cloud drifts by, shaped like a scroll slowly unrolling. The heat against your skin feels like memory returning to the body. Your heartbeat slows. The world softens. In this stillness you understand. The library never burned. It lives wherever a mind grows quiet enough to listen. It lives in silence, in wonder, in you. Your eyes grow heavy. You breathe once more. In, out, and let yourself drift into the vast calm that waits beyond thought. The wind sighs through the ruins. Ash settles like snow. And as the sun climbs over Alexandria, the world begins to dream again.